What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Dawkins on Duke. This week we got Duke legend, Hall of Famer, Olympic gold medalist, Grant Hill. We had a great conversation. So great that it went super long, so we're going to break it up into two parts. But as always, make sure you subscribe and comment. Check out our YouTube channel. This would be a great one to watch on YouTube, The Field of 68. And reach out to us on Twitter, The Field of 68, and my personal account is Dre_Dawkins. Let us know what you think about it. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. And so this is the first part, and we'll be back tomorrow for part 2. This week we got a very special guest, Duke legend, another member of the Brotherhood Up in the Banners, 2-time national champion, Hall of Fame member. I can keep going on and on, but you know him as one Mr. Grant Hill. What's going on, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on finally.
Yeah. I'm glad you were able to come on. So we start the podcast off the same way every week. And so what was your welcome to Duke moment?
Oh, man, welcome to Duke moment. I think for me, it was my freshman year before the season started.
Mm-hmm.
We used to play pickup basketball in Card Gym. And, before the season, the first week of school, we go in there and play. You're a rookie, a freshman. You're coming in with accolades. And I remember I was matched up with Phil Henderson, who sadly is no longer with us, but had just finished and completed his senior year, was getting himself ready to go to training camp with the Dallas Mavericks. And he lit me up in Card Gym. And Phil was about 6'3", 6'4", could really shoot the ball. And back when, shooting was, not everyone seems to be able to shoot the ball well from three, but I just remember wow, am I good enough to play?
Yeah.
So that was sort of, wasn't a great welcome to Duke moment, but it just let me know right away, the level of play and the level of competition and the expectation level. That was an intense pickup game. And, you want to show well in that first one.
Absolutely.
I didn't show well.
Yeah, that's interesting, man, because, obviously you go on to have a storied career at Duke and in the NBA. It's interesting that even you have a moment of man, can I do this? Because I know I had that moment too. One of our first workouts, I was like, I don't know if this is kind of crazy. It was a completely different level from high school. So yeah, it's interesting. So your dad played in the NFL for a number of years. What do you remember about that? Do you remember anything about his career coming up or?
Yeah, my dad played 13 years in the NFL. And so when he retired, I was 9 years old.
Okay.
So I was old enough to remember his career and or at least the latter part of his career.
Mm-hmm.
My earliest memories were of football.
Mm-hmm.
Holding a football, throwing a football. Going in locker rooms. In Washington and Cleveland. So it was definitely a major part of our life, watching football, in person or on television. So that was fun, it was fun. I think I just had a unique perspective, I think, on sports and, on professional sports at an early age. It was funny because, I would inevitably have people come up to me and, say things like, oh, your dad was amazing, or your dad's an amazing player. And, and just all these compliments that they would have, once they knew who my father was. And, my dad at that point was coming off the bench. And so, I don't recall him in his early, part of his career when he was rookie of the year and he was a starter in the Pro Bowl. So I used to think people were just being nice,
Yeah.
And so I didn't really appreciate just how good he was until later on. He showed me some footage and some clips And I was like, okay, he was actually okay. And the funny thing is, the same thing kind of has happened with my kids. You know,
Yeah.
they weren't born when I was in Detroit, and they were sort of old enough to really kind of understand things when I was in Phoenix at the end of my career. So every once in a while, my daughter or daughters will go on YouTube now, and they'll say like, "Oh, Dad, you weren't always a scrub. You actually back in the day." And so it's nothing like kids to keep you humble.
Yeah. Good old YouTube. That's funny, man, because I remember Kobe mentioned the same thing after his last game. You know, he had 60, and a couple of his younger daughters were like shocked, and he was like, "No, I used to get down." Like, so it's funny, kids. Yeah, like you said, kids definitely keep you humble. So dad played in NFL for a number of years. So how did you end up with a basketball in your hands?
Good question. You know, I always wanted to play. He didn't want me to play until I got to high school, in part because he didn't play, you know, until he was in high school. He grew up playing baseball. That was his first love. And so he was introduced to football in high school and obviously, you know, took off from there. So I think that was part of it, but also he felt, you know, having gone through the NFL in the 70s, which was, you know, a difficult time. You know,
Yeah, for sure.
just the level of care and sort of the information that we know now was not available back then. So he felt that, you know, kids needed to be matured, developed. The idea of like Pop Warner football, 9-10-year-olds going out there playing.
Yeah.
I think he thought was reckless. And so he always, I think, intended, as I did, to play when I got to high school. But, you know, once I got there, you know, I had already, you know, fallen in love with basketball and really kind of established myself as a pretty good player. And, you know, it's funny, we were at the courts. So I went to, my high school was right next to the middle school that I went to. And my dad and I, we were out shooting hoops in between my 7th and 8th grade year, right by the high school. And it was in the summer, it might've been August. And the football team was on the field practicing, you know, the varsity, the JV, and the freshmen. And my dad's like, yeah, that'll be you next year over there, you know, in training camp with the freshman team. And I said, nah, I'm gonna be over here in the air conditioning gym.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a pivotal moment right there.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it's funny too, because as much as I loved football, as much as I followed it, I had football cards. I had pictures with, you know, Earl Campbell and Franco Harris and all these great legends from the, you know, late 70s, early 80s. I'm not really a big football fan now.
Oh, really?
I don't watch it. I only will watch football games when I go in person or the Super Bowl. So I'm not this avid fan like I once was, but at one point in time I was.
Yeah. So you get to high school and, you know, you're really good player. And, you know, recruiting rules change like every other year. So what was recruiting like for you in the, you know, late 80s at high school?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I played varsity as a freshman. Got my first letter from Denny Crum in Louisville, and I remember going all over to all the different Foot Lockers, trying to find Louisville hats and clothes and all that. And so, you know, I was all like, I'm going to Louisville. Like that was, you know, that was where my thought process was. But, you know, as things move forward, I had narrowed down my list by the end of my junior year.
Okay.
And, you know, it was Duke, North Carolina, Georgetown, Virginia, and Michigan. Those were my 5 schools, and really it was Duke and North Carolina. And but the recruiting process was actually good. It was a good process. Got an opportunity to really get to know all the coaches. You know, through phone calls or letters. We made a lot of unofficial visits my junior year. which was great. And so, I didn't have any, horror stories or anything bad. I mean, it was a little, as I'm sure you experienced as well, it's overwhelming, in a
Yeah.
sense where, you're a fan and you're watching these programs and you're dreaming, shooting in your backyard or playing at the park. And now these coaches are, are calling your house or showing or, for informal workouts at your high school. And so, it's a fun time. I can only imagine sort of what my parents were feeling and experiencing, but to be wanted by, these great programs and these great schools was fun, and I enjoyed every minute of it. But I also knew, like I committed early. I committed in September, like early in my senior year, because I knew where I wanted to go, and of course that was Duke.
Yeah. So it's interesting. You had Duke and Carolina on the list. Like when I was being recruited, I feel like Carolina didn't recruit me because I think everybody knew I wanted to go to Duke, so they just didn't waste their time, I guess. So was that weird having, two rivals on your list and, going to those two schools on visits and things like that?
Yeah, so just full disclosure, and I think Coach K hates when I say this, but I fell in love with basketball. I remember where I was when I was captivated by the game, and at that point fell in love and was like, wow, like I want to do this, and dreamed about doing it like we all do as kids. And that was the 1982 Final Four. And my dad had recently retired from playing. We had our split level house in Reston, Virginia. We had a basement that was unfinished, and for much of my childhood, that was like a big playroom, toy. We go downstairs and do whatever in the basement. And so my dad decided to get it finished and redone, and so, drywall and carpeted and put a bar in there and put up all his, trophies and game balls and things like that. But he also bought a big screen TV. This is like 1981, 82, and 1982.
Big fatback TV.
The big screen one where it had a projector and it had like, it was old school. And the sad thing is my parents still have it, which is kind of, I think it works, but they still have it. And we bought a Betamax, and so the first thing that we watched and recorded was the championship game, legendary, iconic finish, North Carolina versus Georgetown.
Yep.
And so Jordan hit that shot. It was just a great game. James Worthy made the steal down the stretch. And so then from that moment on, like I became fans of Georgetown and North Carolina.
Right.
And Michael Jackson, who played at my high school, the high school I later attended, he was scheduled to go to Georgetown that next year. And so we got season tickets. We went to Georgetown games. I followed North Carolina in the ACC. And then I started to see Duke emerge, Johnny Dawkins, who played in the Capital Classic in 1982 from DC, and he was the MVP in the Capital Classic. He went to Duke. And then the following year, Tommy Amaker played in the Capital Classic, and I knew of him in Northern Virginia. He went to Duke. And then you just sort of started to see this momentum. And then fast forward, I remember going to the Final Four. My dad and I would go. We went from 84 to 88. And we would go, and it was kind of like a father-son trip. And in 86, Duke is there with Johnny Dawkins, Tommy Amaker, Jay Billis, Mark Allery, David Henderson. And like I found myself rooting for Duke, and didn't really know much about them, but I liked the way they played, and obviously felt a connection to Johnny and Tommy just from, them being from around the way and being from TV. And then from that moment on, just continued to follow. So, fast forward to 1988, 89, I made my first official visit to Duke and had a great visit and wanted to commit like right away.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I came home and I told my parents, I'm ready to commit. Now, I had Dean Smith scheduled to come to the house on Wednesday.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so my parents suggested, because they knew I had been a Carolina fan.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, you just had a great trip, get further removed from it, maybe have Coach Smith come in, see if you still feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
I was also scheduled to go to Michigan the following weekend, which just so happened to be the weekend where Rocket Ismail, you're probably too young to remember this, but Rocket Ismail had this legendary game from Notre Dame at Michigan, where Notre Dame beat Michigan. It was an incredible game. So I'm scheduled to do that the following weekend, go up, visit Michigan, be on the sidelines for this Notre Dame Michigan football game. And so Dean Smith, Coach Smith comes to the house, and great visit, great conversation. It was good. I mean, I didn't think it was bad, but the next morning I woke up and I still wanted to go to Duke.
Yeah.
So my dad was like, "Well, can you wait till after this weekend? Because I'm
you want to go to the game.
You want to go to the football game." So I committed that. I called Coach K that I remember Thursday morning and told him, and then I called the other coaches to let them know that I wasn't attending. And I think my dad was like mad at me for a week. He wasn't mad I chose Duke. He was like, "Could you
just
wait?"
wanted to go to the game, yeah.
So, but no, obviously my mom and dad have grown to love Duke and all that it stands for.
Yeah, absolutely. So you come in as a freshman. They're coming off 3 straight Final Fours, I think. No title.
Yeah.
88, 89, 90. So, I mean, what were your expectations going in as a freshman?
Well, that team in 90 had lost in the finals to UNLV.
Mm-hmm.
It was 25, 30 points. It was a blowout. And that team had 3 seniors who started on that team: Ala Abdenabi, Phil Henderson, who I alluded to earlier, and Robert Brickey. Bobby Hurley was a freshman. Christian was a sophomore. But that team returning had a lot of new faces. We had 5 freshmen in our class, but also players who had been, sort of role players, complementary players. So, I think for me, there was a lot of uncertainty, like what this team would be, what it could be.
Yeah.
I do know, and I don't know if Coach K did this, when you were there, but I know our first meeting, and we didn't have summer school. And I know now teams, players tend to come in early and get acclimated.
Mm-hmm.
I showed up, freshman orientation, like that was moving in. And when the upperclassmen and the entire school opened up, we had our first meeting. And I still remember it like it was yesterday. And Coach K goes to the board and he puts on the board 1991 national champions. And I'm thinking, does he not know that UNLV
still a thing?
they just beat us, and they have everybody back.
Yeah,
they have like Larry Johnson, Stacey Augman, Greg Anthony, Anderson. Like, all these guys are back, and I'm looking around the locker room, and I'm like, I don't know if I believe it. Like, I don't know if I see it. So, is he in the right frame of mind here? Like, I didn't see it in that moment, but I think it spoke. I think it spoke to his greatness, his vision, and what he believed we could ultimately be, and planting that seed early. And we took some lumps that season. We had a tough out of conference schedule, early and throughout the entire year. But we got better. We got better as the year went on, and obviously ultimately got on a nice run at the end. And fortunate to beat Vegas. But I think early, just for me, it was like coming in and trying to prove yourself and establish
Mm-hmm.
yourself. And I think one of the things that I had going for me was that at my size, at my height, at 6'8", I could really handle the basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to think there were other things, but I think that was one of the things at the time. You didn't have a lot of guys at 6'8", who could handle.
Right.
And so that I played point guard my senior year in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to show that and come in and kind of differentiate yourself early in those pickup games after I recovered from that first.
Yeah, after the first one.
As a freshman, you're trying to prove yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Prove yourself to everyone on the team. And so that was, early on what I was trying to do, and play, ultimately when practice started, prove myself, to my coaches and to myself, like I think that's another thing. We all have that doubt. And, one of my challenges was one of my challenges at that point was not realizing how good I was.
Mm-hmm.
And at times maybe being my own, toughest critic.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think coach, challenged me, but encouraged me to be good, to be great, and almost like we need that from you in order for us to have success. And so I needed to be pushed a little bit into accepting that and embracing it.
Yeah, for sure. What was it like? What was the feeling like for you guys going into the tournament that year? I think you lost in the ACC tournament. I think you guys won the regular season though, right?
Yeah.
So what was the feeling? You guys confident? Looking at UNLV, the outside of your eye, like UNLV's over there. How was the team feeling heading into that tournament? I mean, I know coach is, supreme confidence all the time. But from your perspective, how did you guys go into the tournament?
Yeah, I mean, we really kind of grew up that season. We got better. We did win the regular season ACC championship. We had depth. I mean, we had we played 9-10 guys. Laettner kind of had emerged as, a top player, a clutch player for us. He took a step from his sophomore to junior year. Bobby really, I think, grew up and matured and became more seasoned as a point guard. I think personally I got more confident. Thomas Hill really emerged that season and became a force on both ends of the floor. So there was a confidence, but I also think, we didn't look, and sometimes it's, we forget, like it's not, we weren't in this world where there was technology and social media. And it was, you were a little bit insulated from, the madness, It wasn't in the Chronicle, like I didn't read it.
Right, yeah.
As a freshman, you didn't really have access to ESPN and SportsCenter like you do now. So you were, not to use, the term bubble, but you kind of were in a bubble. And one thing coach really preached to us was like focusing on the task at hand. And I don't know if he did this when you were at Duke, but it was kind of like 4-team tournaments.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Know exactly what you're talking about. Yep. He printed it out for us. I remember that my freshman year too. Printed it out, and he was like, this is our Final Four. It was the first round. This is the Final Four. So this is our job. And then, next week, printed it out again. This is our Final Four. And then, eventually it is the actual Final Four. And it felt like by the time we actually got to the Final Four, it was like, oh yeah, this is, I don't know if comfortable is word, but like, it's like you've done it, you've done it twice already. If that makes any sense to anyone listening.
No, it makes total difference. I mean, total sense. instead of looking at the totality of the tournament, it's
Yeah.
like break it down and you just sort of have, it's easy to manage, it's easy to focus in. And he would even, and I don't know if he did this too, but even during the regular season that year, we had a couple of stretches where we had 2 games in 3 days.
Yep.
And going into that, he would talk about how this is what we'll see, in a tournament weekend, playing on a Thursday, Saturday, or Friday, Sunday. So can we focus in and win the first game, and then have a quick turnaround, recover, prepare, and still be ready. And I remember we played Carolina, my first Carolina game at home that year, and it was, as all Carolina games are, it was emotional. It was, it was like a championship game in itself, and we won that game. And then 2 nights later we played down the road at NC State. And this is when they had Chris Corciani and Rodney Moreau, and we lost. And so we failed that test.
Right.
But that was going into those 2 games, like that was emphasized and discussed and talked about. So even getting to that first round in the NCAA tournament, like you'd already kind of been prepared. You already had gone through a couple of segments like that. And I actually thought that first week, like we got better. That first weekend, we played Northeast Louisiana. I'm probably gonna mess up the school. It was Southeast Louisiana. We beat them pretty easily, and then we played Iowa, and Iowa was a team that pressed all game, and we ate that press up, and we were dunking all over them, and Brian Davis and Thomas and myself. I mean, I think we all had like 3 or 4 dunks that game. And it was just a big kind of confidence booster for us to have, kind of an assertive win like that in that setting. And so there was a confidence for that weekend. And I think the confidence from weekend to weekend only grew stronger.
Yeah. I mean, it seemed that way because, like you said, the first 2 games, 2 blowouts, and then you go into the regional semis and finals and win both of those games. I think it was like 14 and 17 or 18. So, you guys won the region double figures every game. So I imagine confidence going into the Final Four was pretty high, even though, you're staring at UNLV undefeated, beat you by 30 the year before. What is that going into that one? What is that like for you as a freshman? Because it's like, y'all lost by 30 last year. I wasn't part of that. Well, I mean, and I know Laettner and Bobby, as competitive they are, were like, itching to get back at them. So what was that like for you as a freshman, not having played them the year before, but there's still that history with the team?
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean that team, and the next year's Duke team, and with Bobby and Christian and all of us, like I think we acknowledge now that was a great team, and maybe one of the best teams, at least in the modern era, or maybe the best, depending on who's voting. But but I think prior to that, like I don't think people appreciate just how dominant UNLV was. And like there were those who thought they could win in the NBA. I mean, they were just that good, that dominant, that intimidating.
Impossible, but I understand what people.
No, it's impossible. I mean, it is impossible. Knowing what we know now,
yeah, it's 0 chance.
There's an 18-year-old, like and like I mean, it was just like this team is incredible.
Yeah,
and one of the great college teams to not win a championship, of all time. So, I think a couple things were different this time around. One,
Grant Hill was on the team.
We had, well, I'll get to that. We had a week to prepare. Unlike the year before, where you essentially had a day.
Right.
You don't really get a whole lot accomplished on that Sunday at a Final Four.
Yeah.
You play late the night before. You have media requests. You're trying to. You can't practice. You can't do anything. It's a quick turnaround. So we had a whole week to prepare. We watched film, coach, we ran to the fire, we went back and we looked at the film, and we game plan. I remember at one point we practiced against 7. It was 5 against 7.
Oh, really? Wow.
And because they were so long and athletic and had great speed. And so going against 7 was chaotic. But at the end of the day, like, we truly believed that we were going to win. And we felt, obviously, the pressure was on them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they had not been in a close game all season. We had been in all types of close games. And we won some, we lost some. We practiced in the game situations all the time. I don't know if you guys did that.
Oh, yeah.
We did it all the time.
Yeah. We would have days where it was just game situation stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, 5-minute scrimmage, 10-minute scrimmage, and then, 1 minute down 3 or 40 seconds up 2. What are we doing? So, yeah, definitely did that stuff.
So for us, it was just, if we can, we can come out and hit them early and let them know that this is not last year, and keep it close, then the pressure is really going to be on them. And then I think one of the, you mentioned it, so I'll speak on it. But I think with having me, like I was the backup point guard. I was the backup point guard to Bobby, but I was the starting power forward. And so, that great team the year before with Allah and Bricky and Phil Henderson, they weren't ball handlers. Bobby was the primary ball handler and really the only ball handler. And so I think I kind of served as a bit of a pressure release.
Yeah.
Where I was able to, early in the game, I'm bringing the ball up and Larry Johnson's guarding me, which, I felt like I had the advantage. You're out here on the perimeter now. This is
it takes him out of his comfort zone.
Yeah, it takes him a little bit out of his comfort zone. And so even now, as I'm saying this, like, we were kind of positionless basketball, even that team, before that became a thing. And I'm a power forward. I'm a backup point guard. Laettner was a big guy who was one of the first big guys to go out on the perimeter, mix it up inside. Yeah. And so it was a different team, I think, our versatility. And then I think we just had a collective grit and toughness about us, having gone through that, that game the year before, but then also the season prior to the Final Four. So, we were confident. We might have been the only people in the country.
Yeah, I'm sure probably were.
I'll tell you this funny story. So we're at the airport hotel. That's where we were staying. It might have been a Holiday Inn or something. And the Friday beforehand, somehow we were in downtown Indianapolis. Maybe we went to dinner and Coach gave us some time to wander around. And there was a mall there in downtown Indianapolis. And they had like this karaoke studio in the mall by the food court. So me and Brian Davis and Tony Lang, we go in there. I think Mark Williams, who was a manager, we go in there and we end up singing Prince, 1999. And so we go in the recording booth and we sing it. They didn't have a great selection, so you had to take what they had.
Yeah.
So then you could go next door and record a music video. So we go in there and we record it and we're dancing and acting silly or whatever. And so we go back to the hotel and we have the tape of the video. And this is the Friday night before the game. So we go to Tony's parents' room, Tony Lang, and Tony's dad, Mr. Lang, would bring a VCR on the road. And he would always tape the games in his room. He'd set it up on timer. And then the parents would all go back and watch the game, until the next game.
Yeah.
He also would record the movies in the hotel room. And But so we go back to the room, and I remember all the parents gathered. Now the parents, I've learned since then, they're a nervous wreck. Like they're thinking, there's no way that, we're going to beat Vegas.
Yeah.
And my parents have told me this since then. And so we go in the room, we put the tape in, and we're we're watching the tape, and we're silly, we're dancing, we're doing this, and like if you looked around the room, and the parents were just like, "Oh, we have no chance tomorrow. We have no chance." Like 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 they're looking around like, "You gotta go on Stacey Augmon tomorrow, and y'all out here making Prince music videos before the game." Like, like no chance.
Yeah,
And
that's funny.
my dad even has said that he was in that moment, he was thinking, okay, like what kind of like talk am I gonna have with my son to try to pick him up after the loss tomorrow? But I guess we were relaxed and we were confident, and and thankfully we played well, and were able to get that win.
Yeah, that's funny, man, because I don't know. I almost would rather y'all have been, in that state. Like if I'm, having been in like high pressure situations and things like that, you want your team to be relaxed and free flowing and, not have that pressure. I know you mentioned it earlier, like the pressure is all on UNLV, and it is, because they have all the expectation, right? They have, they're coming in undefeated. They won it all last year. You beat this team by 30 last year. So all the expectations is on their shoulder. And then, like you said, they hadn't played any close games. So, how do they react when there's a little bit of game pressure on them? But yeah, that is that's a really good story. So then you do get into the game. It's a really good game. Bobby hits, that big three. You guys end up winning. The clip I always remember, you guys winning and celebrating, and coaches like trying to calm everybody down. So you guys come off this big high. You beat the team that everybody thought was unbeatable, but job's not finished. You got to win one more. How do you guys flip the script and turn, get to the next thing? And like you mentioned earlier, you only got one day to get ready for Kansas in the national championship game. So how do you guys move on after having this big, emotional victory on Saturday?
Well, it's a great question. It was tough. And one of the things, Coach talked about leading up to the Final Four was that very thing. Like, we're going to be Vegas. And then the hard part is going to be, completing the job, coming down from that incredible high, and having the focus to be able to prepare for the next opponent. And one thing, Coach reminded me of this recently. I forgot about this, but he said that, the game before us on that Saturday was Kansas, Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in the tunnel. It was 20 minutes between games. So like the team loses or wins, and then like we're coming out right away for layup. Yeah. And so we were in the tunnel, and in the Hoosier Dome. And when Carolina lost, he brought us back in, and he talked to us, and he didn't want us to rationalize and have a built-in excuse now that Carolina lost. Like, it's okay, because the pressure, Duke, Carolina, and all that.
Yeah,
Carolina loses, it's okay if we lose. They can go further than we did. So and so that next day, we were not ready. We were out, and we showed up for practice. Matter of fact, I think a couple of guys showed up to the bus and they had sombreros on.
Yeah, that's funny. It's funny you mentioned that, because I was talking to Coach Amaker, and he said some guy showed up to the bus the next day and was acting a little bit different. And
I think Mike Bray, who was an assistant, or maybe Tommy, like told him to like take him off, take him upstairs. But like, and then we go to practice, and we're like kind of screwing around, and Coach leaves. Hey, you guys aren't ready. Or maybe he kicked us out. I can't remember if he kicked us out or he left practice, but he chewed us out, and he might have left. And then we meet, and we're like, all right, look, and so then we go get him, and but like we needed to, like, things needed to be reset because we were still riding high, and I think of this year. I think of, that great game Gonzaga versus UCLA.
Yeah.
And I knew from, having beat Vegas and just going through that period as a freshman, I knew that it was going to be hard for them to get up for Baylor and give Baylor credit. They were amazing. They're a great team. They might have beat them under any other normal circumstances.
Yeah,
but
they were very good.
When you have an incredible moment like that, it's hard to recover from that in a way. And so, so he reset the focus, and we got locked in, and we went out there, and I don't think we played great, but we played well enough to win.
Yeah.
And win pretty easily, I think. I mean, it was close a little bit down the stretch, but that was hard. Like that we needed to be kicked out,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We weren't.
I remember getting kicked out of practice a few times. I feel like he has he has to get one or two in a year.
Right.
And it's funny because by my senior year, I knew 10 minutes into practice, I was like, oh, we're getting kicked out today.
Yeah.
I could see the signs. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, we're getting kicked out. It's just a matter of time at this point.
Yeah.
So,
and it's also some of the speeches too. Like you hear early on, and you're like, wow. And then, you or the motivational, sort of tactics that he might use.
Mm-hmm.
I have some, I won't get it, but I have some funny stories about. I'm like, yeah, he said that to Laettner 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And, it to me. It's okay. All right.
It's hilarious, man. We were getting together at K Academy and talking to guys and going over stories. And I'm like, man, he did that same thing, 20 years ago, and he still did it. But I mean, hey, it works. It works. He got five banners hanging in the end zone, so it works. So then you guys get the monkey off your back, got the title, bringing a lot of the guys back to the 92 team. I mean, you guys have to be supremely confident going into that year, right?
Yeah, no, that Final Four, I think, just kind of, I think in a way it obviously elevated the program. Now Duke, Coach K, the program, became a champion. It became, you got that monkey off our back, or off his back, or the program's back, as you alluded to. But it also kind of propelled us and gave us this supreme confidence. And we came back that next year, and we felt like we were Vegas. We felt like even before the season started. Preseason number one, Christian's preseason college player of the year. Just the confidence and the know-how in terms of winning. I think we all came back better, and came back, more experienced, more seasoned, but just a better group, a better unit. And so there was a real sort of excitement and anticipation for that upcoming season. We were good, and we knew we were going to be good.
Yeah.
And so that was a neat time.
Yeah. So that year's tournament wasn't, the regionals weren't quite as just breezed through as the year before. Obviously, then culminating with the regional final against Kentucky, one of the best games in tournament history. So we got to talk about the shot. Just everything about it. Did you guys practice that? What was, how was it drawn up in the huddle? Were you confident in your arm? What was going through your mind for that play?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's it was an incredible moment. So, when Sean Woods, let me just say this. I think the year before we were the hunters. I think that year we were kind of the hunted.
Yeah.
And Coach, he set the tone for the season, saying, we're not defending champions. because they can't take what was ours from the year before.
Yep.
So he wanted us to sort of be in pursuit mode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember the pursuit talk in 2011. Yeah.
Okay, you remember that. But it was exhausting that year.
Yeah.
I mean, so by the time we got into the tournament, we had some injuries. I think we were like mentally fatigued. So just to set the stage, I mean, Kentucky, I have not watched that game. I've seen the obviously highlights and things of that nature, but I'm still kind of mad because I felt like we came out, we were up, we were kind of in control, and then we got a little lazy.
Yeah.
We got a little lax, and then we gave them life. And next thing you know, we're in this, like we almost lose. So I feel like if I were to watch the game, I'd get mad. And because we kind of did that a little bit. We did it against Iowa in the second round. Like we just, it was such a mentally fatiguing season. So anyway, Woods hits that shot, 2.1 seconds left. One other thing, I don't know if you guys did 2-man drills to warm up before practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we would do 2-man drills. You'd have a partner, you throw the ball against the glass, get the rebound, outlet it, and you'd go through a series of things. And so it always ended with the baseball pass.
Yeah.
And you take the ball out, your partner would run down the court, throw the ball a length of the court. And so I always would brag about my arm being, like I should have been a quarterback, like, and I always I would deliver. Like if my partner, it was always a point of pride to be able to throw the ball and then catch it in stride and lay it right up.
Yeah.
And so, so we didn't practice that play, but we practiced that pass. We practiced the baseball pass every day. And I felt like I was, I was a Cowboy fan. I feel like I was Troy Aikman or something. Like I was always on money. So, but I mean, I think in that moment he knew that I could make that pass. And so we get to the huddle. As we're walking there, I remember thinking like, well, that's it. We're gonna lose on that play. And I also was thinking like, yeah, I think upcoming week is spring break. So I guess I'm going to the beach. Like, I mean, I remember this going through my mind. Like, I guess, I heard about how great spring break was the year before. I guess I'm going to spring break this year. And, coach just really took charge in that huddle. And, the first thing he said was, we're going to win. And he sort of set the table in that sense and got our focus on winning. And then he asked me a question. He said, "Grant, can you make the pass the full length of the court?" And I said yes. And what was beautiful about that, and I may have said this before in interviews, but instead of telling me, a lot of times coaches will say, "Okay, Andre, you take it here. I want you to pass it here." Asked me, and me answering and saying, "Yes, I'm taking ownership. I'm taking ownership for what I need to do in that moment." And so just the brilliance on his part to ask that question in that moment. Yeah. In that moment, like where everything is just like you think it's coming. I'm thinking I'm at Myrtle Beach the following week.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, because if, like you said, it's a normal, hey, Grant, you're going to throw this pass, you're going to ask yourself that question anyway. Right. Like as you're walking out of the huddle, you're going to say to yourself, oh shit, can I make this pass? Like, but, having already had him ask it and you say, oh, yeah, I can make this pass. It seems small, but you're walking out of the huddle in a different mind state.
Right.
You're walking out of the huddle saying, oh, okay, yeah, I can make this pass. I know I can make this pass, as opposed to walking out asking yourself, can you make this pass? Right.
No question. I mean, it was brilliant. Like when I said it, like, okay, I took ownership and I believed I could make the pass. And then he asked Christian, Christian, can you make the shot? And Christian said, if Grant makes the pass, I'll make the shot. And like typical Christian, like it was actually might have been more brilliant, like him saying that moment. And so, I mean, that in a nutshell, there was some other sort of stuff, movement.
Yeah.
It was all window dressing. If Christian's not available, throw it here. Somebody streak into the basket. But I knew I was throwing it to Christian. I knew I was going to go to him. And so when we walked out the huddle, like, I believed that we were going to win. I believed that we were going to, we were going to get it done. And when I got to the baseline and I noticed nobody was on me.
Yeah, that was big.
Yeah, it was, we had a moment, we had a game, we lost 2 games that year, and one of them was at Wake, and similar situation. They put Trelawney Owens on the ball. Trelawney was about 6'9", 6'10". And the play was for Christian to kind of start, in front of Duke's bench and run across, like, free throw line extended, and kind of catch the ball on the run near the sideline, and then go, his momentum take him to the basket. And so I threw the ball and it went a little too close to the sideline. He caught it, but he went out of bounds. And the ball kind of curved a little bit in the air. So I remember, after the game, we were talking about it. And I said, next time, next time if I'm in that situation, I'm going to step back. You don't have to be right toeing the line, particularly if somebody's taking it out. So at least step back and give myself some space to be able to see and deliver. So that was not even sure if that ever would happen again, but just sort of a learning experience for me. So when I got out there, it was like, oh man, like, Christian's wide open. So he's 6'11". I'm just going to try to throw it up there, hope he goes and gets it. He always brags about his hops. So let's see. And so, when it left my hand, it felt good. And I remember, like, it was all like, it felt like it was in slow motion. He caught the ball and I'm like, yes, and then he takes a dribble. I'm like, no. and I'm like, no, and then he, a little shimmy.
Yeah, got the shimmy.
A little over his left shoulder. And then I had the sight line because, I'm watching it. And as soon as it leaves his hand, I can see it's on line. And it was in the air forever. It felt
like.
But I mean, for him to have the presence of mind to catch it, take a dribble, to kind of gather himself, get his rhythm, and then, go into his shot. It was beautiful. It really, to me, sort of embodied and represented, like, his game and who he was at that time. And so I remember the ball goes through the hoop and our fans are behind the basket. And it was just like everybody's hands went up, and like, you saw it. It was like, it was amazing. And then, like, you're running after Christian and, like, you want to go celebrate, and he's got his hands up, and then he's kind of like, I'm running towards him, and he runs away from me. Like, let me enjoy this by myself, which is, Christian.
Yeah.
Christian. But it was, it was great. I mean, even when I see the moment now and it gets replayed all the time, particularly during March, you just can't believe that we were part of something that incredible.
Yeah.
Next year, I guess, will be 30 years from that moment.
Yep.
And, to think, I was 19, he was 21. We were part of, I don't even think in the moment we appreciated just how big that was.
Yeah.
But it was special. And it was exalted. Like, I think, getting back to what we said earlier, we had a week now before the Final Four.
Right.
And I don't know if we recovered. I don't know if we played our best basketball against Indiana in the semis, because we were still riding high off that moment. That incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, like you mentioned, like, the awareness of the clock in that moment is, to use all the time you have, get the dribble, get the move off, turn and shoot, is something that you don't see a ton. Like, guys rush a lot in those moments when they don't have to. So it's pretty incredible for him to know the time and know, like, okay, like, I got it. I've got time to take this dribble and, get myself set and get a good shot off. Cause you see it a lot. I saw it in the tournament a couple times where guys get it and it's like 3 seconds left and they're like, trying to fling the ball up. And it's like, no, just, you got to know how much time you have and know what 2 seconds is, know what 3 seconds is. What can I do in this 2 seconds? What can I do in 3 seconds? As opposed to just, your brain just going crazy and you just flinging something up and then you got no shot to make it. So yeah, that was impressive for him to know I got this much time. I can do this in this much time.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, just you're spot on. I mean, to have that awareness. Christian was an incredible player, like an incredible competitor, and just dominated. Like he was so good.
Yeah.
And I saw him go up against legends, future Hall of Famers, like, and he would just kick their butt and talk trash while he's doing it.
Yeah. Hey guys, as a reminder, this was just part 1. We still have a lot more content with Grant. So make sure you tune in tomorrow. I'm going to release part 2. It's just as much fun, but it's just too long to put all this in one episode. So yeah, make sure you tune in tomorrow for part 2.